Hello, welcome to Visual Storytelling for Social Media Growth. My name is Stephen Draper, and I am the digital media producer for the Oklahoma City Police Department. One of the things that really excites me about visual storytelling, it goes back to the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Video, even more so. And there's a lot of truth in that visuals can essentially summarize your message that you're trying to share through your organization to your audience a lot quicker than through words, and it's a lot more engaging and appealing. So in this session, we're going to be talking about how we can all be better visual storytellers. I'm going to be taking it from some of the basics into some more advanced techniques that maybe you haven't ever considered before, and helping you hopefully grow your social media. So diving into the topic of our audience, we first need to figure out, what does our audience actually want? There's a principle in marketing called inbound marketing. It's this idea of those that are searching for answers, they're searching for something, we're already kind of cutting them off at the pass. You're not just waiting for people to come to your social media platforms. We need to be able to meet their expectations. We need to go to them. And the first way we do that is by beginning to identify who them is. Who is our audience? And so by shaping our content, by making it as appealing as possible and answering and fulfilling whatever their need is, we're able to grow our social media presence. And from there, we can then discuss where the audience is going to be viewing this, because that's going to actually impact our visual storytelling a lot. A lot of the social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter, they have a limited time in that you can have a video of only a certain length. Facebook, you can have videos that go on longer, but they also have the stories, and they're going to each have their own different audience. So understanding who that audience is then allows us to kind of figure out, okay, well, where are they and how would we present our content? We can then kind of begin to answer the question, what is it they're actually wanting? At OKCPD, we know from our analytics what the top categories of content that people want to see are. Number one is cool cop stuff. That's what they want, right? That's what they expect to see. That's not necessarily the image we want to promote, but that is what it is, right? Even though we would love for our PSAs to be the most viewed content, our educational pieces to be the most viewed content, our press releases, that's just not it. So we know what our audience wants. And from there, we can begin to start crafting our message to kind of scratch that itch. And the other part that we can really look at in our audience is, how are they consuming the media, right? We understand social media platforms, but even just how they consume it, that can vary. Our YouTube shorts are far more popular than our horizontal, longer form videos. Those are two separate audiences. And I've got to be able to produce both of those to tell a message and to tell a story. The same thing that's going to work on one platform isn't necessarily going to be consumed and seen the same way on another, right? So you have this idea of the audience. That's good. Now, what do you actually share? What kind of stories and content are you going to tell? I want to narrow down on three things. First, a lot of audiences want to see the unseen. People want to see something that they've never seen before. We are able to go behind the scenes and show them how our departments are working, and that's going to capture people's attention. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. Vlogs are very, very popular. Behind the scenes of a big event and showing how it gets put together. Being able to do a day in the life of one of your employees. These are the kind of things that people are going to be drawn to and find interest in. Next is just understanding the concept of viral. It's not doing this shocking thing or doing something silly or goofy. It is actually the concept of a virus. It is spread from one person to another. It's about making something that somebody says, I think this is interesting, I think this is important, I think it's maybe entertaining, and I want to share it with others. So think about that when you're doing your messaging, when you're thinking about creating a video or a photo. Is this a photo that you're taking that you would share? Not just because of the organization. Is it a cool looking photo, or is it kind of a boring looking one? Is that a cool video, or am I falling asleep during it. If you can make something that appeals to your audience that they want to share, then you're going to see growth across your social media. And one of the big things as we start to think about these seeing the unseen and making things that go viral is really understanding that anything can be a visual story. I think sometimes we think that busting out the camera and making a video or taking a series of photos has to be this for something big and elaborate. And that's not true, right? Because no story is too small. It's easy to kind of overlook them for the big flashy things. But when you give care and attention, when you actually share the passion of why this is important and why this matters, you can get people to expand their knowledge about what is going on within your agency and your department. And using visual storytelling techniques that we're going to get into, you can begin to make what is unappealing much more attractive, much more entertaining. But let's go ahead and dive into what everyone's here for, which is creating compelling visual content. You don't have to be an expert to begin to start to create content that people want to consume. But there are some techniques that you can learn, but it is entirely possible for the layman to be able to pick these up. So first and foremost, you will need a camera. But the thing is while there are lots of different options out there, you don't really need anything more than your smartphone. Our smartphones tend to have cameras built into them. There's a lot of apps that allow us to create graphics and other things as well. But if you want something a little bit more advanced than your smartphone, understand even DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, they take photos and videos and usually have enough ports that you can add some of the accessories I'm going to talk about. If you have a smartphone or a DSLR or mirrorless camera, you're going to be able to do both photos and video. But one of the things you absolutely need if you were considering doing video is getting a microphone. Something that turns people off immediately is bad audio. They make these wireless microphones for both smartphones and for cameras that you can be able to just plug it in real easy. And it's nowadays gotten to the point where it's pretty inexpensive. So if you do not have one, please go get one. It's going to make your content seem a lot more professional. Also pretty inexpensive is getting some kind of stabilizer, a tripod. A lot of people, their hands aren't that steady and it's going to shake and it's going to look unprofessional, right? There is a time and place that to go hands-on and get off the tripod, but for a lot of times when you're doing interviews or anything else, you want to be able to have a tripod. Finally, another thing you really want to consider is lighting. None of us are going to look too flattering without some kind of light. The great thing is you can be able to get top lights for actually your smartphone, even these smaller cameras. You could invest in a cheap light set. Lighting doesn't have to be anything too fancy. A little bit goes a long way in making your subject look much, much more professional. So whether you are brand new to media or you've already been producing it for your department, there are some techniques that really are beneficial. The first of these is going to be understanding the rule of thirds. It is an aesthetic that we have seen throughout art for millennia and kind of understand this is what looks good. The rule of thirds is merely the concept that if you took an image, like this one for instance, and you divided it into a 3x3 grid, that you would put your subject on one of the thirds. Another basic to really consider is lighting. One of the things that we first want to think about is making sure that our lighting is in a well-lit area, that we're going to be able to see the details that we need. It's not going to be distracting. We can see our subjects clearly. Not every time are we going to be able to film in the most ideal locations. Sometimes we have to add an extra light in there, but there's also times when we don't even need that. It's just a matter of positioning. So if you have the option, one of the most powerful light sources you can use is the sun. So you don't need people staring directly at it, but make sure they're facing in that general direction. If you put them with it against their back, they're going to be silhouetted. We are sometimes working in different environments where we may have to make some adjustments. So get into your settings, whether it's on your smartphone and adjusting the exposure, or just learn a little bit about a DSLR camera, about f-stops and changing how much light is getting into the camera. You may need to, in most cases, brighten it up a bit to have a properly exposed subject and still have a background that works for you. Another basic that you really need to know is being able to focus your image. Nothing looks worse than a fuzzy image, and so we want to strive for clear, sharp images. If you've got a newer camera, or using your phone, there's a lot of touchscreen features in there. One of them is being able to adjust your focus simply by touching on the subject. Really not complicated at all. Now maybe you've got lots of things moving and your camera is still kind of freaking out. You can actually lock in the focus for the most part by touching and holding those touchscreen, and it will usually lock in the focus. This works typically for a lot of DSLR cameras, works especially on smartphones as well. Now I know an often said thing is video is king, and I as a videographer love producing video, but there's no denying that people just want to be able to consume media quickly. And so photos in a lot of places are going to see more views, more shares, more likes than videos, which take a little longer to consume. So photos have a great opportunity to tell stories and to communicate our message. And so understanding the kind of photos that will help track and grow our social media is really important. To reiterate a point that I already said before in creating content is showing the unseen. Take a photo that normally somebody would not get to see that. So if your team is at an event they're putting together, don't do the photo of the team all standing there and smiling. That's not interesting. I've seen that a million times. Instead, where can I put this camera? What can I show at this event that maybe I don't normally get to see? That's going to clue me into this is something I should pay attention to. It's not a photo I've seen 100 times before. Make it a photo that is interesting to look at. Show me something I haven't seen before. When you're crafting photos and you're doing social media, everybody's a skeptic. What people really want is honesty and transparency. They want to see what it's actually like. And so be candid with your photos. If you've got people working for your agency, don't do the staged photo of them just smiling and working on something. Find opportunities that you can show them really at work. People can sniff out the propaganda. Give people an honest look at what is going on within your department and the stories that they can care about. And really, it comes down to visual storytelling. Tell the story through the photo. What is ultimately this story about? Make me feel something exciting or sadness, or maybe it's funny. Find that angle, that perspective that allows you to basically summarize the event. And don't think you're limited to just one photo. There's plenty of opportunities to do things like carousels or other kind of slideshow presentations. But if you follow these points, if that's what you're striving for, your photos are going to be much better received. They're going to enhance your copy, and it's going to be something people not only get the message better, but they're more willing to share that message. All right, finally, video. Well, probably one of the biggest things when we think about visual storytelling. While it has a lot more steps, doesn't have to be as complicated or scary or intimidating as you may make it out. But let's talk about the big debate when it comes to video. Do I film horizontal or do I film vertical? So before we solve that, let's go into just a little bit about what both formats really bring to the table. So horizontal is how we've traditionally consumed media. Why? Because that's how our screens tend to be oriented. But now with smartphones, our screens have gone vertical. Now, especially with younger audiences consuming things on their phones and holding it vertical, it may be common sense to film things vertically. And I do want to tell you, like, there's a place for doing that. I'm going to say something that I already know is going to be controversial, and that is to film things horizontal in most cases. Let me explain. When it comes to horizontal videos, you're going to be able to get more mileage out of the photos and the videos you take. You can convert horizontal video to vertical video in the apps that you're using, in whatever editing software you have. It's not super complicated, but what you cannot do at any acceptable level at least, is take vertical video and make it horizontal. The other reason I say that is because you can actually make twice as much content by doing that. I film things horizontal, I have my horizontal video, and then I make the vertical video from the horizontal video. Same thing, but I run it through a template that makes it vertical, and now I actually have 2 videos. Why is that useful? It's actually because those usually aren't the same audiences. So being able to have both of those formats just means that you are getting further reach, you're reaching new audiences, and you're being able to see your message and your content go out even more. Now I say all that with one caveat, and that is that if you know you need to do a quick turnaround, or if you know the video is going to be vertically only, then go ahead and shoot it vertically. It's just makes sense. Just like I said, you may not know what a good photo looks like, but you know when there's a bad one. The same's true with video too, which ultimately gets edited. You can tell when editing is jarring and it doesn't look professional. So there's a really simple step you can do when you're starting to take all these different video shots that you can make sure you have everything you need to tell a visually interesting story, and that is the 5-shot sequence. It's a great staple to kind of keep in your head and to get really proficient with so that you can start filming better, and it just gives you more professional look when you get to the editing. The 5-shot sequence needs to begin by discussing what the different shots are that go into it. The first shot you really need to be able to get at any kind of event, at any kind of video you need to be doing, is a wide shot. The wide shot is going to show where the location is, where all the players are, and it's going to be able to give kind of the big picture of what you're filming. From a wide shot, an easy edit to then move to is the medium shot. Understanding what a medium shot is, it's a lot closer than a wide shot, but it's not a close-up quite yet. It's going to show more of the subject. If we're talking about a person, it tends to be a waist-up kind of perspective. What's its purpose? Is it is best used when showing off an action, our subject doing something. From there, we start getting into our close-ups. The whole purpose of a close-up is to be able to show off the details of what's going on. You can have close-ups of objects that the subject is working with. You could have a close-up of the subject's face. You could have close-ups of the subject's hands. Showing a close-up is going to draw me in. It's going to make me much more interested. 20% of your shots need to be wide shots. Things that you can go back to that reset the sequence and kind of establish where everything is. Another 20% of your shots need to be the medium shots, the action that's going on. But the bulk of it, that 60% of your shots, need to be close-ups. And so that breaks down neatly in the 5-shot sequence. But if you're shooting more than 5 shots, which you probably are, then make sure that you are filming lots and lots of close-ups. And it's one of the most beginning mistakes I see a lot of people do when they're trying to tell visual stories, is they're too afraid to get in close with those details. That's what your audience wants. That's going to be where the story is closer, not further away. And when you get to the editing process and put it all together, you're going to give yourself a lot easier time to make it look visually interesting than having this kind of jarring, jumping around similar shots. So the big difference between photo and video is simply this. A photo is a still image, a video has motion. So we should be taking advantage of that. Look for opportunities that you can show motion. It doesn't even necessarily have to be super exciting or fast-paced, but having something stationary tends to be more boring and makes us lose interest in the storytelling, where if we keep it moving, then that visual storytelling goes up and ultimately the whole product is much more appealing to our audience. Now, when it comes to moving the camera, we want to avoid jerky shots that are just going to be hard to process, right? So you don't have to be a professional with cameras to be able to just do slow moving shots. So don't feel like you got to throw in the towel just yet. You can move the camera around and you can focus in with your close-ups and highlighting other details with your 5-shot sequence, and you can generate interest and visual appeal to your story that may not natively be there. Now, we've talked a lot about video techniques, and I said audio is the unsung hero when it comes to video. Bad audio will kill even the best looking video. So it's important that you use proper techniques. We want to make sure that our subject is going to be the most prominent sound that we capture, because that's the story you're ultimately trying to tell. If you were by busy traffic, if you were by a water fountain or anything, that noise is going to get picked up. So find areas that are relatively quiet and be cognizant of the fact that what could be potentially adding extra noise. And one of the few ways that you're going to be able to to get good, clean audio is to make sure you're capturing good, clean audio. So if you're using a DSLR or some kind of camera, make sure you have headphones. Now, so many times we think about audio, we're thinking about interviews, but a really fun way to be able to tell stories is to actually think about the audio of the event, the people and the places, the thing, these natural sounds that we could be incorporating into our videos. The world is a very noisy place with lots of unique sounds, and those can just bring us in and suck us into the story like we feel we're there.
You're not ready because your stuff's not in your hand. Hurry up! Now! Hurry up! Don't look at me. Get your butt out there. Hurry up! Let's go!
Now, so far, photos and video, that's maybe approachable. The thing a lot of people dread when it comes to visual storytelling is editing. And I will admit, you have to know how to edit to be able to edit. So whatever you're editing on, whether it's a computer or whether it's an app like CapCut or Canva, it doesn't have to be intimidating. You are going to need to learn it. There's a lot of resources out there to teach you how to edit. I want to go over editing to enhance your visual storytelling and to enhance your social media growth. So first off, as passionate as we can be about our projects, we've got to again be considering our audience. Almost universally, we are seeing audiences want shorter and shorter content. Something about 1 or 2 minutes that tells the story, nothing longer. As we start thinking about vertical videos, shorts, TikTok, Insta Reels, all that, those tend to be 60 seconds or even less. The bulk of our audience are wanting short videos. They want to be able to scroll through. And if they are seeing our content short and bite-sized, it's kind of like an appetizer. They want a little bit more, right? We talked about the 5-shot sequence. The beauty of the 5-shot sequence is going from like a wide shot to a medium shot to different close-ups. It's going to edit pretty clean. You feel free to use transitions and effects, these things you see on TikTok, flashes to whites and different cool dissolves, but so long as the ultimate product looks clean. Too much of anything is bad. So if your video is just littered with transitions and flashes and filters and effects, it's going to look unprofessional. Maybe limit yourself to just a handful of transitions for the whole video. Maybe only pick a few different kind of effects that you can throw in. It's finding that right balance. You don't have to have just cuts only. I'm not saying that, but make sure that you don't go overboard the other way too. All right, now to really bring home editing is how to retain your audience's attention. Music is going to go a long way. It should match the theme, but it should also keep us invested in it. It shouldn't be jarring. It also shouldn't be overpowering, so make sure to lower it if it's too loud. Another way to hold your audience's attention is through readable text. So consider having captions throughout your video. YouTube and some other platforms do have like a closed caption ability that you can edit those as well. But there's also apps like Canva and CapCut that add some captions in there and just make it so that it's easier to read. Now, why is that important? A lot of times when people are consuming media on their phones, they may not be in a place that they can have audio. And so having readable text that they can kind of follow along with lets them get to be able to enjoy your content without having to have the audio there. Now, wrapping things up is optimization. If you're creating content, it's going to these different platforms, and understanding how to make our visual storytelling really, really prominent, that's really where the social media growth is. You've probably heard of search engine optimization, but you may not quite understand how to necessarily get that and some of the techniques and tools that are already there. When we're posting visual storytelling media, the text that may be surrounding it is almost as critical as the video itself. It's going to get me to watch it, to click it. So we need to be thinking about our title. We need to be thinking about our descriptions, and we need to be thinking about our hashtags. These are things the public is going to see. So when we're thinking about titles, we want shorter titles, not lengthy paragraphs. We want it to be descriptive, and we want to be able to incorporate some of our key words. That goes into search engine optimization. Same with description. We want to be able to have a kind of a summary of what people are consuming. We want to be able to expand on the message, maybe the things that we weren't able to share in that photo or video. We have have that room to be able to tell that in the description. And with the description, we can again implement keywords. Talking about hashtags, limit yourself to just about 3. And why hashtags are really important is they're another way people search for content, and it kind of categorizes content. And so find a way at the bottom of a description usually to add those hashtags. Thumbnails, captions, links, these are really important too. Too often we haphazardly have a thumbnail. A good thumbnail is going to draw my attention. Almost think about like a product photography or a good cooking show, right? I'm more likely to watch it if the food looks really appetizing. Same thing with a lot of our content too. So captions are really important too. Now there are closed caption, kind of auto-generated stuff, and we can go in there and edit those and make sure they're accurate. But why captions are really beneficial is that when we have those in our videos, those words get added into the search engine. And finally, we have the opportunity to have links. We can kind of continue the story, continue the message, direct people where we want with links. Now, everything we've been talking about so far has been forward-facing. It's what the public sees. Let's go ahead and go behind the curtain and talk about the metadata, the things that really the public doesn't get to see but are really essential for optimizing our content to make sure it gets viewed. So add tags in. This is an opportunity for you to put words in that might pop up in search engines. It's that inbound marketing again. It's people looking for content or an answer, and by using tags, I'm meeting them halfway and saying, hey, here it is. And the other way is by categorizing things, making sure that your videos and your photos are flagged as the appropriate topic, and so that they are being seen by the right audience. There are tools on our social media platforms that allow us to see how to do better visual storytelling. We can have our analytics drive a lot of how we produce and the content we produce. So one of the great tools that we have in a lot of our platforms is how is our content being discovered? We can actually see, are they discovering it through our Facebook? Is it being shared on other sites? We can kind of get a sense of how are they watching our visual storytelling. If we see that people are discovering it from outside and being brought in, then we tend to know that a lot of our search engine optimization techniques are working. If we see that people are kind of doing it from likes and subscribes, they're already kind of in the network, then we know we're hitting our audience, right? And we can now start focusing on, okay, what could bring in new audience? What kind of ideas? This is already working. A lot of these backdoor analytics allow us to see how the visual storytelling is being consumed. A lot of these platforms show us when people are watching and what they're watching. So I can see on a video, for instance, how long is my audience watching? What part of the video are they watching? Maybe your videos aren't doing so hot and you're wondering why. You've got a 2-minute video and it's you thought that was short and consumable. But maybe you've got a 10-second intro, and so you can actually look at that audience retention and see that your audience dives off within the first 5 seconds. You can see those moments that work and don't work. And finally, if you're doing social media, it's all about them clicks, the likes, the subscribes. And that's what we ultimately want. We want more engagement. And so we can see what's being engaged with. Dive into that. See what's working more. I know that our behind-the-scenes stuff gets a lot more likes. It gets a lot more shares. It gets a lot more subscribers. And so I know our audience likes that more. I know that some of our human interest pieces, those don't tend to do as well. Are they important? Sure. But if I want to grow my social media, see what's successful and start copying that. I feel like a lot of you that signed up for this session probably did so because cameras may be intimidating. You may feel insecure in your ability to produce content, but I hope that you got some nuggets from this that make you realize, yeah, I can do that, and see a lot of great social media growth for your organization. But understand that it's just a journey, right? We need to constantly be sharpening our skills, growing our abilities. And even if you're not in the role of a constant media producer, that to be good at this, to have a professional thing, you need to keep adding to it. And while this session here, I feel like had some great nuggets, there's actually a lot of opportunities to learn this. Media has been out for a while online, and there's lots of resources to learn to shoot better, to get better with cameras, to learn some editing techniques for novices to kind of move themselves along. I still use a lot of those to this day to kind of see some things and to gain perspective, really understand that you're not alone. A lot of people have gone before you and have that content out there. So really adopt the philosophy as a visual storyteller of also being a lifelong learner, and you'll find a lot of success in making much more professional looking media that hopefully will see your social media numbers take off. Thank you.